think that we'll get started. You are all busy people and you've all logged in on time, so welcome and good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on this pretty miserable day here in Christchurch. Hopefully you're bundled up nice and warm in your office or at home. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Hannah Doney and I'm the General Manager here at Decipher. Today's HR Leaders Forum is focusing on a very current topic, diversity, equity and inclusion. My colleague and senior business partner, Sarah Dixon, is championing this work stream on behalf of Decipher, and she's taking us all on a DE&I journey. As people-focused leaders in your organisation, you will undoubtedly agree that DE&I is paramount. Organisations that are prioritising DE&I are coming to realise the positive impact and benefits, motivation, productivity, financial return, and so much more, this vital work stream. So as I previously said, for those who've just joined us, I will mute you all now. So can you please use the Q&A function at the top of your screen to ask questions. But without further ado, over to you, Sarah.
Kia ora, Hannah. Kia ora koutou. E rere taku manu ki te tihi o Oraki. Rere ihu taku manu mai te awa o Waimakarere. Tau ana taku manu ki te whenua o Waitaha, ko kaitahu te mana whenua te iwi whakaruruhau. No o tutahi o ko tipuna, ko Sarah toko ikoa, kia ora and welcome. I'm Sarah, I'm the Senior Business Partner for Decipher Group. I could introduce myself though by using one of the many other role titles I have in my life. I could say, hello, I'm Sarah and I'm a mum. I'm a wife, or a daughter, a friend, or a colleague. There's so many more that I could add to the list. It's been such a privilege to be nice to speak today and share some insights around diversity, equity and inclusion. I think before we kick off though, I just want to briefly share with you the journey that I've taken towards diversity, equity and inclusion, because it's not something that's just been shaped over the last month or two, but rather it's just been a collective of my environments I've been in, experiences. It's been influenced by the places that I've worked and the people that I've met. I've been lucky enough to work across both the public and private sector. I've also worked for a Crown-owned entity and I've been deeply entrenched in an iwi organisation. And it's through these experiences and environments that have really helped shape my values and beliefs in both a personal and a professional sense. My role here at Decipher Group has brought all of these experiences together and has allowed me to just be me, which has been incredible. So for the objectives for today, we're just going to touch on what's changed in the diversity and equity and inclusion space, and why there's a real sense of urgency that's starting to evolve. We'll review a case study and discuss sort of the benefits that an organisation can expect when they start to take this journey. We'll also just share how Decipher Group has started on our journey and the ways that we can support. So as Hannah mentioned before, we here today are all very aware of the importance of supporting a culture of diversity, equity and inclusion in all that we do, and especially in our workplaces. It's something that directly reflects the organisations we work for and how these organisations operate within a community. And recent studies have shown that we as a nation have started to change our consumer behavioural trends. We are showing more favourably towards brands who show real alignment towards inclusivity, and we're evolving and becoming more socially conscious. Further to this, studies have shown that this allegiance to these brands does not just stop at the counter, but is also being factored into our decision-making processes around where we want to work, what organisations we want to align ourselves with, And moreover, which organisations appear to be more forward-thinking and proactive in their approach. Our team here at Decipher have really reflected on what that means to be proactive and future-focused. We've taken an inward look to understand what diversity, equity and inclusion is so important to us, both at a personal and a professional level. When we talked about this at a professional level, our findings were unanimous. We concluded it's important because we're in the people business, and we create genuine partnerships with organisations and individuals to really get to know them and to learn about their uniquenesses, to hear about where they've come from and the direction they want to go, to understand their values and what really makes them fizz. So success for us is quantified by connecting people to places. And in an industry such as ours, diversity, equity and inclusion is paramount. It enables us to connect the right person to the right role. The first step for us was actually to commit to diversity, equity, inclusion and create a framework that underpins all we do. But before we go too much further on this, I just want to touch on the notable shift in attitudes towards diversity, equity, inclusion that we're experiencing at a global level. So why now? What's changed? Where's the shift? Let's talk about diversity. It's omnipresent. We actually can't get away from it. But what we are seeing is a real shift in the urgency to understand it and create those inclusive environments. And we have reached a moment in time where social stereotypes are becoming a thing of the past. We're in a world where we're no longer defined by labels, and where previously minority or underrepresented groups are speaking out in the aid of equality. This calls for individuals and organisations alike to take a moment and reflect, and then strategically position themselves by planning for the future in a world that is making significant progression in accepting one another's uniquenesses. Now, I'm not vigilant about tuning into the news on a daily basis, but I have taken a personal note of the increased airtime and media coverage that diversity, equity and inclusion is receiving, whether it's about the abortion laws in the States, whether it's about media hosts on our morning breakfast shows, equitable rights in the education systems for those with disabilities, or fleeting comments made by corporate CEOs. The frequency of these stories, though, are coming in at an alarming rate, which tells me that there is an increasing awareness that's sweeping across the globe. And it's only going to, and as we are moving at such a fast pace, we're going to actually start seeing employees within organisations taking an inward look and assessing what their organisation's stance are on each of these matters. Sorry, there we go. So most of us here today would have been privy to the recent comments a CEO of a chemical company made directly targeting entrepreneur Nadia Lim. Media coverage on this has been extensive, and we've heard the cry of the nation in response. We'll just take a really quick look now at this case study, as it really highlights how one person's individual's values and beliefs have affected an organisation and a community as well as an individual. So first of all, we'll just take a wee moment to refresh our memories on what these comments were. When you have Nadia Lim, when you've got a little piece of Eurasian fluff in the middle of your prospectus with blouse unbuttoned showing some cleavage, and that's what it takes to sell your script, then you'll know that you're in trouble. Let's just take a moment to digest these words of this one single person who is a corporate CEO, someone who is in a leading organisation. Little Eurasian fluff. blouse unbuttoned, showing some cleavage, and what it takes to sell. I'd like to ask how that makes you feel as an individual. And are you sitting comfortably with these remarks that single out gender and culture? For me, these words hit hard. Who was this person to think that they could talk about another individual in this way? If we contextualise these statements, we can surmise that they are provocative, personal, and opinion, and have little or nothing to do with Nadia's business or its promotion. I'd like to further suggest that these comments showcase the perception, the values, and the beliefs that this one person has voiced in such a public manner. At an organisational level, the repercussions of these statements have been extensive. The company has lost tens of millions of dollars. It's been blacklisted. Our Prime Minister has made an official statement around the unacceptable nature of these comments. Moreover, the board of this organisation has instructed that an independent company conduct a full review of the company culture, as well as a full senior management remuneration review. And the damage to this brand and the reputation of this organisation will be enduring. So let's look at it now from the individual perspective or a community one. Nadia shared with us the impact that these statements has had on her and the wider community. Taking a more inclusive approach, her feelings of hurt and sadness were not for herself, but the impact that these comments could have had on the lives of others. She rightly noted that over time, comments like these could be damaging to someone's self-confidence and idea of self-worth. And it's through this example that we can get a real sense of the impact and consequence of a single person's belief that is had at an organisational level, as well as affecting people at an individual level and to a wider community. I've come across some recent eye-watering data that shares with us the realities that are lived by so many. So I'm just going to read out some statements or some facts. And what I'd like for you to do is just to think of the answer, keep it to yourself, and see how close you are to the correct answer. First one, out of 35 countries globally, where do you think New Zealand is rated for women in senior leadership roles? What number? We came 32 out of 35. Next one is around people with disabilities. So what percentage of people aged between 15 and 64 do you think were employed as at June 2021? What's the percentage? So we're looking at 42.5%. But we're going to compare that to those that were employed as of June 2021 that were not disabled. We're almost at double. Next one. So what do you think that the unemployment rate of a transgender or non-binary is compared to the general population? So it's 2 times that of the general population, which is quite staggering, and leads nicely into this next one around what percentage of people reported as having hidden their sexual orientation at work at least one time. 83%. And if we think about that, that's the majority of our organisation that we work in. And the last one is around age and discrimination. What percentage of women do you think reported as having felt discriminated against because of their age? The percentage is sitting at 72, and men actually reported feeling this similar at 57%. So yeah, those statistics sort of really hit quite hard, and for me personally, they really fired up my passion for diversity, equity and inclusion, especially in the workplaces. If we think about diversity and equity and inclusion as a journey and not a destination, then I think we've started on the right path. Diversity and equity and inclusion is actually something that is unique and bespoke to each organisation, and the solution for one organisation is not necessarily right for the next. The one thing that does remain fairly consistent though is the outcomes that organisations can expect to receive once they start to embrace diversity, equity and inclusion. So we're just going to run through some of these benefits now. So first and foremost, you're gaining a social license, knowing that you are doing the right thing. When we talk about social equity, we're talking about fostering and integrating minority groups, creating that safe space for team collaboration and for everyone to feel valued in the team. When we talk about co-production, we are ensuring that all team members are empowered, that they are ready and willing to participate in initiatives because they feel valued and represented. This means that you can expect greater engagement. And when we talk about social cohesion, we are talking about operating in inclusive environments. We are enhancing social cohesion by bringing those traditionally excluded groups up to that decision-making table. Right. Diversity enhances performance and productivity, and teams become collectively more productive and engaged. We all know that when each member of our team feels represented and valued and a critical piece to the puzzle, then the drive and motivation to contribute and deliver better outcomes is enhanced. The payoff from this is that morale is also boosted and contributes to an enhanced working environment where team members want to stay, meaning you could expect to see a lower staff turnover rate. On top of this, innovation and creativity is enhanced. And through truly valuing individual ideas and inputs, you will be bringing those heterogeneous minds and stories to the design and operation of the organisation's purpose. The payoff here is that more creative solutions or products are going to be developed, which will in turn then keep your key stakeholders engaged with your organisation and what it has to offer. Finally, on this slide, we talk about team performance, and team performance will naturally be enhanced. When team members are empowered to share their diverse views, this is naturally going to lead to stronger problem solving and decision-making capability. And finally, diversity is a tool and it allows us to plan for success. When we talk about prospecting, we are talking about managing diversity well and strategically developing your inclusive culture. An organisation will gain the required tools to prospect for opportunities that deliver for its purpose. Therefore, you're going to be able to plan better, you're going to be able to grow your services correctly, and you can anticipate barriers and operational difficulties before they arise by using demographic projections to drive representation in your workforce and anticipate customer issues and identify opportunities. Doing diversity and inclusion well can be challenging, but the reward is great. To achieve outcomes, workplaces need to foster inclusive environments through inclusive teams and management. And this often means that organisations may need to adapt or acquire some new skills. So I really want to reiterate here that diversity, equity and inclusion is a journey. It's not the same for every organisation. And for the purpose of today, I'd actually like to liken it to health and safety, for the fact that it is actually constantly evolving. There's no final destination, and it's going to be one of those ones that is going to need to be continually refined and reviewed and adapted as we get more involved in this area. So as mentioned before, and I'm just really going to reiterate again, is those outcomes that we've just spoken about, they're largely going to remain the same. So Decipher Group have thought about all of this, and we here are underpinned by one simple statement, and that is to make a positive impact. And this actually stems across all of our stakeholders. It's between colleagues, it's between anyone that we engage with, and to ensure that we're actually achieving this on a daily basis. We've developed an overarching diversity, equity and inclusion framework, which we apply to all that we do. We recognise that it's important now more than ever to act in a partnership approach. And our support will extend across all of our service offerings, but some of these are just listed here today, and these include bespoke or tailored diverse recruitment processes depending on your organisation's needs. Again, the same with any remuneration reviews or role sizing or psychometric testing. In addition, we can support teams to position themselves strategically for the future through working directly with individual teams or an organisation as a whole. And if this is something that is important to you and your organisation, and you'd like support on that journey at whatever stage you're at, I'd love to have a conversation or a coffee and just have further discussion on this. Before we jump into the Q&A, I do have a video. It was created by Deloitte, and it just really, I found it quite powerful in terms of the diversity, equity and inclusion space. I'm going to try and play it for you now. Hopefully it works. Cool. Look, I don't know about you, but I find that video quite thought-provoking. So yeah, I guess we'll just open it up to question and answers now, and we see a couple already coming through, so thank you. There's two in particular that have seemed to be quite a common one from the audience here, and one is the difference between equity and equality. Really good question, because these two terms are something that are used so frequently, yet are used interchangeably all the time, yet they have quite different meanings. So if we think about it simply, equity is really about opening up different avenues for the individual to experience success. So you know, by not taking a one-size-fits-all approach and providing different avenues or different ways for people to achieve the same goal. Whereas equality really focuses on providing an individual or a group of individuals the exact same avenue to reach the destination. The other question that has popped up a couple of times is around, the question is, what are the challenges around starting the DEI conversation? I think my first response to that question is, if you're thinking that already, chances are there are others within your organisation that are actually having similar thoughts and would like to start the conversation. So it is about being brave and having those bold conversations and you know, sharing amongst your peers you know, how you're feeling about diversity, equity and inclusion. But again, as we mentioned in the presentation, you know, this journey is unique. It's different for every organisation, and there's never going to be one solution that's going to fit everybody. So, you know, and that's where, you know, individual third parties can really come and help and support that conversation and offer, you know, that tailored approach into either starting the journey or enhancing DE&I in the workspace. That seems to be it for questions and answers. I think, yeah, they all had very similar themes. So thank you so much. I'll hand back over to Hannah.
Thanks, Sarah. Look, I do actually have one more question. And it's something that someone has raised, and it's something that I think that we should all think about, and that is the role that the government plays in the approach to parental leave on increasing women in senior leadership roles in New Zealand. And I think what a fabulous question. I think that is a question that has to be put to the Ministry for Women. I think it needs to be put to global women. It needs to be a question that is answered holistically by those people. And I think I will be taking it to some other forums that I'm part of, and then I will certainly bring the answer back to you. But I guess I throw the question back to the audience here in terms of what role do you think that the government plays in its approach, and perhaps we can catch up for a coffee to see what we can do about it. I think it's not necessarily just about increasing women in senior leadership roles, but just generally around parental leave for all. So listen, Sarah, thank you so much. Oh, I've got one more question that's just come in. Hang on one second. Oh, yes, here's a good one. What about clients with existing or internal HR recruitment teams? You know, Sarah, what support do you think that we, Decipher, can contribute in this space?
Yeah, so a lot of organisations will have the internal recruitment teams, and one thing that we can offer support on is the recruitment processes, and coming in to review those processes, to challenge those processes, to workshop some new ways of thinking or doing things. And you know what, that's actually something that we do quite continuously here at Decipher Group, and you know, we love talking about different ways of approaching things, and one thing that we do really understand is that different industries are different, so there are absolutely different ways that you can approach diversity, equity and inclusion, and embedding that in the recruitment processes, depending on which sector of the market you're in as well. So that's a really great conversation to have, and yeah, we'd love the opportunity to come and workshop these with teams, and yeah, see what we can come up with.
Oh, I have another question here. Sarah, do we have any examples as to what we would actually do to start the conversation or a workshop with a client? You know, how do we approach that?
Yeah, so one approach, and I'm not saying this is the correct answer, one approach would be to I guess work with the organisation to understand, to do a bit of a discovery workshop, that's what I'm trying to say. So to discover sort of where you're at in the diversity, equity and inclusion, and depending on where you're at, whether you're at the beginning, whether you're in the middle, or whether you're quite advanced in this area, then you know, we can work to support organisations in pulling them through that process. But you know, one thing to start the conversation is just to run a workshop, and it could be an online workshop, it could be face-to-face, and just to generate a little bit of excitement and talk amongst the organisation. I think once people start talking about this, it's sort of something that it just naturally evolves, because it's something that you know, affects us all. It's not, you know, it affects every single person, and it affects every single workplace as well. So I think that we'll find that these conversations are going to start to become more frequent, and I think that we're going to see some real change and excitement around diversity, equity and inclusion.
I think it's also important to add that we can probably add some of these questions or motivations into the culture and engagement surveys that a lot of organisations have, and actually create a section within that in terms of understanding DE&I. I know we've certainly worked on that and had discussions with one of our clients around it recently. Right, I don't think we have any more questions. Anyone else got anything they'd like to ask Sarah? Oh, here we go. One last one, Sarah, for you. What's the best way to approach equity when there are cultural sensitivities amongst a large workforce, and to ensure everyone is engaged?
this is a conversation I'd love to have over coffee, only because there are so many intricacies when you're dealing with all those different organisations and different cultures embedded in those organisations, and there's so much to be mindful of when you are dealing with different cultures, when you're dealing with different people, and you know, I think that as far as keeping everybody engaged, it would be about really understanding, you know, who was represented in your organisation, what you know, where are the different cultures, and you know, just understanding a bit more about the people there and what's important to them. I think it's really about workshopping with an organisation around what is important to people in the workplace, because I think you'll find the answers, you know, they'll tell a lot, and they'll tell you exactly what's important to them and how to keep them, and you know, what's going to help keep them engaged. So it is about workshopping with your people. Yeah.
Excellent, Sarah. Thank you so much. And look, thank you to everybody for coming along today. We hope that the next forum can be in person, but if not, we'll continue to run them online. So if there's any topics that you would like us to cover, we're more than happy to take suggestions. But listen, we hope that you've taken some tips and tricks from today on how to start or indeed continue on your diversity, equity and inclusion journey. We would love to support you, so please reach out for that coffee with Sarah or any one of the team. Fire your questions through, and we will try to get the recording of this out to you within the week so that you can recall any of the information. So thanks very much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.